Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fired Up, the podcast for marketers working in early and late stage startups. I'm Morgan McClintic, the CEO of startup marketing agency Firebrand. We've launched this podcast to interview the best in the business, but I'm not going to do it alone. So please meet my co-hosts.
I'm Nicole Pytel, Firebrand's VP of Content Marketing.
And I'm Chris Ulbrich, Firebrand's Head of Media Relations.
I'm Ian Lipner, a tech PR and crisis communications veteran.
We'll drop a new episode each week, so there's plenty of fuel for your marketing fire. Get the spark you need to take your startup to a whole new level. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fired Up. My name is Morgan McClintic, and today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence and its impact on sales and marketing. Now, AI is a theme that we touch on in almost every episode, but today we dive deep with a subject matter expert. Her name is Katie King, and she's recently published a book, AI Strategy for Sales and Marketing, published by Kogan Page. All about it. She's done TEDx talks. She does training across Europe. So she's a real expert about the impact of AI on marketing. And so I thought we could benefit from what she is seeing. It feels a little bit like there was a race where we were all getting up to speed with AI, and then we had a lull. But just recently, we've had Gemini 1.5 Pro be launched. We've had Sora, the OpenAI's text-to-video tool, come out. So that race has been going on in the background. So I'm interested in hearing Katie's views on that. But then more broadly, how should we as marketers be thinking about AI? How do we learn about it? Where do we go? Which tools should we use? What should the policy be for our startup when it comes to AI as it gets implemented in all of our day-to-day tools, from Google Docs to LinkedIn, Word? It's becoming pervasive on the content side. So I'm interested in hearing how Katie thinks we should tackle that. Is there an advantage to being early in and using it in our marketing? What are the risks? This is a really important topic, so I'm thrilled that we have one of the foremost experts on it as it impacts marketing to talk to on the show today. So with that said, let's call Katie in. Katie, hi, welcome to Fired Up.
Thanks for having me, Morgan.
Oh, it's great to have you. So for those that don't know you, perhaps you could just tell us who you are.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, greetings from the UK. I live in the countryside. I'm from London originally, but I live in the countryside in East Sussex in the UK. And I've published 2 books on how you apply artificial intelligence, in particular to the business functions of marketing, sales, CX. But I've been in tech marketing for 30 years. And I've got lots of other roles like the All-Party Parliamentary Group for adoption of AI and those kinds of areas. Maybe we'll cover those a little bit later on.
So you've literally written the book about AI, and that's why I'm really looking forward to talking to you about this topic. So congrats on the book. Right, well, let's just start with some basics. Can you just give us a quick sort of state of play on when it comes to AI and marketing? We're sort of 18 months post the launch of ChatGPT, which for many is the sort of anchor point of the timeline, but obviously goes way back before that. Give us a state of play.
Good question to start with, really. I guess it depends which industry sector you mean. So let's break this down. If you talk about where are we at with generative AI, ChatGPT as tools beyond just marketing, then they are way over the curve. So you've got the Gartner hype cycle, and they've sort of at that peak of paranoia and just kind of like dipping over it. So that's the tech itself, generative AI. But if you look at it in marketing, I'd say we are still in the exploratory phase of it. And if you really think about certain industry sectors that are more heavily regulated, like the financial services sector and the pharmaceutical, medical, healthcare sort of space, then, they are at an earlier stage as well, because they've had restrictions on how they can really take advantage of lots of different AI marketing tools. So I think it really depends. And then you have at other ends of the spectrum, some of the big retail brands like Heinz and Coca-Cola and some of those sorts of ones that are doing incredible things with AI and marketing. So, I think everyone's really, from the hype of the last sort of 18 months, got their hands on it. And we're now understanding what the term AI in marketing really, really means. But, you have to sort of break it down into different industry sectors.
Right. And I guess also into different area sort of practices within marketing. So which are the ones that are most impacted? I think instantly of, hey, content creation. But which are the areas of marketing that have been most impacted by AI so far?
I agree with you. I'd say content creation, not just the written word, but also the graphic side, the video, even coding itself. Those are probably the big areas. I mean, we've seen just this past week, Sora, OpenAI, introducing new tools like that, which is text to video. But we've had Midjourney, we've had DALL-E, Bard, and so on. And I think they're the ones that most marketers for content creation are really using. But also, I would say in the space of research and analytics, less market research and more. So think of brands that many of us, tools, for example, that many of us might have been using for a number of years, like Brandwatch. So I think the sentiment analysis that is possible now across all different languages, all different social platforms, all different geographies. AI doesn't replace what our human brain can do, but we don't speak 100 languages. We can't cope with an X scale amount of data. So I think marketing related areas that are to do with that sentiment and understanding deeper insights about our target demographics are, really benefiting from AI across the marketing spectrum.
Right. So you mean, hey, I might be an international company marketing in different languages. With AI, I can translate those. I don't know, I'm looking at social media feedback. Let's say I can translate it into, say, English, my primary language, and then run sentiment analysis on it. Whereas previously, I would probably not do that, or would need to be done locally and only at a level that would be quite expensive.
Absolutely. Or, running ads and just making a few tweaks to them that then serves those up to different target audiences in their languages, in their local flavors of culturally what looks right. If you think back to last year, Barbie, you had, examples of tools like Midjourney showing what Barbie's house would look like in all different countries around the world. So you had the ability to really go crazy and go super creative and super tailored with certain AI text and image generators that served up really personalized content. So I think that's probably one of the biggest ones, but it doesn't only mean ChatGPT.
Yeah. I want to talk about Sora in a moment, but just going to the sort of content creators, when I think about generative AI, I'm mainly thinking about text generation. And, I think it's fair to say a year ago, a lot of content creators, copywriters were worried about what does the future look like for us with these new tools. Then we quickly realized that the content is by definition average because it's trained on the internet and comes up with a computationally sort of average output. So their jobs are safe. And so we all sort of felt a bit of relief, and it sort of quietened down into the background. And yeah, look, it's generating summaries and low level content, but it's not, it's not doing the thought leadership, or it's not doing anything massively creative. But these tools are getting better and better and better. So is our worry sort of going down, but the capability of these things getting better? Should we be more worried today than we were? Or what do you think about that?
We should be more worried if we as organizations and industries don't evolve and change. If we accept that these tools come in, our levels of learning, our way of doing things is going to remain as it is, then it's hugely concerning. So I think we all have to, just like the word Copilot, with Microsoft's Copilot for 365, this is revolutionizing every aspect of work. It can do it for HR in the same way that we're discussing how it can do it for, for marketing and for sales. As we bring more of these tools in, I believe one of the biggest things is it's taking away the guesswork from the way we used to do things. I think social media gave us lots of analytics, but this is giving us really deep insights, augmented intelligence. I prefer to use the term rather than artificial. And if we expect to carry on doing marketing the way we've done it, and then we introduce these tools, then effectively people could be redundant because they're going to be trying to carry out their jobs while a tool can be doing it in maybe a third of the time. And so I think the greatest opportunity for marketeers, whatever level, is to go up the food chain. You know, there's different areas of expertise. You could go down more of a data route, but I think for all of us, we've got to add so much more value. And I've got a whole chapter in my book on the paradox of personalization. And so what brands, NatWest in banking and TGI Fridays in hospitality and retail are saying is we used to treat people in a very broad, homogenous way. And now we can serve very personalized content. And we no longer look at broad classifications of market segments that we deal with. We say, Katie comes in, she likes this, she does this is her behavior. And so I think we have to change the strategic way that we do what we do and use the tools to do more of not just grunt work, because it's very capable of incredible things, but might serve up a 75% well-written blog for us that would normally take us a good few hours. And then we top and tail and make it super personalized. So I think, yes, if we don't change and if we don't add more value and go up the food chain a bit.
Right. I mean, these tools are capable of mass personalization of content now, whether it's B2B on an ABM side or whether it's a B2C approach. And so it sounds like what you're saying is those audiences are now going to expect not just segmentation, but personalization. And the brands that are going to be successful need to deliver against that. So us as marketers need to use these tools to be able to deliver that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And therefore change what we do, the parts of it, the more strategic parts that we do. We analyze the data, that it gives us, the insights, we make sense of them and we put them to great use. We don't just accept it. We have to get people's consent. When we've got that, we can serve them up the right kind of content at the right time, cross-sell, develop products on the back of those insights, and so on.
You mentioned social media, and when the dawn of social media came, no one had lots of experience in that when it came. And I remember it being a huge opportunity, even for the most junior members of our agency at the time to be the leader in that area. Hey, I'm the Twitter leader. I'm the leader now today. It could be TikTok. It could be whatever channel. But I still feel like, people might look at marketing and say, well, that's getting absorbed by and automated by lots of AI. But actually, I think it's a huge opportunity even for people coming in to be the expert, because none of us have really, some people have written books about it, such as yourself, right? But so you're ahead of many people, but no one has got decades of experience in this unless they're sort of a data scientist.
I totally agree. But on that point, actually, I feel personally that it levels out the playing field a little bit.
Right.
Because I'm 57 and you might write me off. You might say, you're a few years from retirement. You're left behind. Actually, quite the opposite. I'm way ahead. Equally, somebody coming in, let's say a graduate, their school, their course may not have been as up to speed and may not have taught them all the things to do with AI and marketing. So I don't think it matters if you're 20 or if you're nearly 60. All of us are on this journey of learning, and the new tools are coming on the market. The Soras are coming on the market all the time. So it's about adding value. You no longer need decades of grey hair and gravitas to be incredible at what we do. But equally, age isn't a barrier at the upper end of the spectrum. So I think we've all got to learn to use the tools to add value and to find our niche and to find how we satisfy customer needs profitably, which is really at the kind of essence of what marketing is about.
I love that. So definitely a risk for some, but a huge opportunity for everyone.
Yeah.
You mentioned then some of the tools, and I felt like, okay, we had a rapid succession of products a while back. Then it sort of went through a bit of a lull and everyone thought, okay, this is good. I've sort of got my head around most of them. Mm-hmm. But then just recently we had Sora. So this is the amazing sort of text to video product that has come out from OpenAI. And then we also had, I think on the same day, rather cheekily, I think OpenAI launched Sora on the same day as Gemini 1.5 Pro, which is multimodal, and it's their new LLM, right, from Google. So we now have another massive leap forward in two of these tools. So I wondered what you think about those tools and what's coming around the bend.
It's incredible, really. I mean, you feel like you're just getting to grips with many of the tools on the market and really making great use. And then the next one comes around, and I actually read a quote earlier from Tyler Perry, who's the actor and filmmaker, who was planning, I think it's about an $800 million investment in new studios for video production and filmmaking and so on. And he's saying, with these new tools, he's probably not going to need it. So the ability of these tools to create this incredible content, at a fraction of the cost, to make content that's, uniquely interesting, and it's mind-blowing what it's capable of doing. So, we're talking about getting close to having production quality video content at our fingertips. Being able to create that kind of content without actors, without camera people, without graphic artists. So I think this feels game changing, because I've often talked about there is going to be displacement, but this isn't going to be wide scale job losses. But when you start to look at the capability of tools like this, it's a bit more worrying. And I think we have got to come together as governments, as trade bodies, as, all kinds of stakeholders that are involved in how industries thrive and are regulated, because otherwise it could devastate certain industry sectors. So, the pace is incredible. And I think, what the technology is capable of on the one hand is one thing, but then allowing that to be used full scale, having regulation for it and so on, is the law is catching up too slowly with the capability of the technology. And so we have to really think about that. But it's mind-blowing. What it's capable of doing is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, on that Sora thing, you type in a quote and then you can kind of get an amazing bit of video. My understanding is, though, those are generative. Like, you can't then manipulate those objects, the Japanese woman walking down the street. There's still anomalies in the background. There's no, like, the people have the wrong number of fingers, or their faces are blurred, or there's no real language, like any written language doesn't make any sense. And you can't change that because these are not 3D rendered objects. So if you were going to make a whole movie of it, you type it in and then it's done. And if you type it in again, it would be different.
There's a way to go, but it's exciting. I'm brilliant at writing, but I'm very poor at image creation and drawing and so on. So tools like the Midjourneys and DALL-E's and now Sora and others are fantastic for somebody like me. So, again, I think it's game changing in that sense, but we've got to be careful we don't just jump on this tactical bandwagon of thinking it is all about the next tool. I think we've got to take a step back and really think strategically about how does this change our ability to satisfy our customer needs? How does this change our revenue targets? How does it allow us to serve up better content that meets customer needs? Coca-Cola using AI to define what the next tin can looks like, and Heinz creating labels on their ketchup and so on. So I think it's bigger than just the content for PR and social media. It's product related, it's customer experience related as well. And that means all different departments in the organization are touched by AI. So it's a board level thing, really. Marketeers are at the heart of that. And that's why I think it's such a brilliant opportunity for today's marketeers to move up the food chain in a very strategic way.
I agree with that. Because we'll end up, if you think about it at a tool level, we'll just end up doing more. You're automating some tasks with this, but you end up opening up more channels and still being busy. So you never really get that strategic time. The concept is these things are going to automate a lot of what I do. So I'll have more time for the strategy thing, but you end up just doing more busy work. And that's definitely a risk. You just touched on regulation and some of the risks. There are definitely brand risks in here. And I think it's important for brands and agencies to have an AI policy, right? To sort of safeguard IP, to sort of maintain confidentiality. You know, obviously you talked about financial services companies who are highly regulated and can't upload content that might be then absorbed into an LLM, for example, to make sure that outputs are copywritten. If I'm Heinz and I'm doing the label using a generative AI tool, I surely want to make sure that those assets are copyrightable and ownable. And Midjourney has one opinion and Adobe Firefly has a different approach to that. So obviously we've got to avoid bias. So do you think that this sort of topic of AI policy is getting enough attention, and is it getting enough training within organizations? What are you seeing?
I think it's getting a lot of column inches.
Right.
We're talking the G7 summit, you know, all of the things that have been discussed where we saw Mark Zuckerberg in front of Congress. I'm on the all-party parliamentary group, so I hear a lot of content around that. I don't think it's getting the training in companies. I don't think it's getting the attention. I don't think people know who to turn to for that. You know, I think they are expecting, and I keep saying to people, please play a really proactive role in helping to shape the regulation. Work with your trade body. You know, it might be your Content Marketing Institute or AI Marketing Institute, or equivalent of, if you're in marketing but in financial services, you know, it might be the British Retail Consortium or your US equivalents of those sorts of. We've got to play a role in shaping what that looks like. We've got the AI EU law coming into play this year, but regulation all around the world has been slow. It's imminent, I believe. It's going through the statute books. But within companies, they're just sitting back, I'd say quite passively waiting for that, where actually more companies in the last couple of months have been saying to me, please help us with an AI playbook. Please help us define an AI policy. And I'm really encouraging that, because they're using a plethora of tools in the meantime. And it might be some time until those, you know, that legislation is in place. And even when it's in place, will it be policed properly? So I think it's getting column inches, but it's not getting the attention and the action that it really deserves. And I think the trade bodies have been a little bit slow to have their role within that. People are going, what should I do? What should I be doing? You know, Where's the glue that fits everything together?
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, you now see, you mentioned Copilot. Okay, so Copilot is now integrated into Windows and everyone is getting it. You can also buy up on Google Workplace has now got Gemini. You can roll it out into Google Docs and Sheets, etc. So everyone will have these tools within an organization and they'll be using them in different ways, but we need the training. You had talked about, hey, look, you know, there is some training, but there's just not enough oversight. And do organizations need an individual or a board member, or like, what does that oversight look like?
They do. They need an AI champion in every department. The AI champion for HR, for marketing, for finance, for law. And I've been working with all those different types of groups in the last couple of years. And then those people come together monthly or however regularly, and they brainstorm best practice, they debate, they come up with a policy for the organization. A bit like your point a few minutes ago, Morgan, about, you know, where social media was a few years back. We were all worrying about policies, social media policies, protecting the brand, protecting our staff. We need that now. I've been working with chief legal counsel for some of the world's biggest brands, and without going into anything too confidential because it was Chatham House, they're worried about their staff inadvertently violating copyrights with ChatGPT. It's saying, how do we protect? How do we protect sensitive customer data? How do we not go too cautious such that we miss out on opportunities? You know, it's a complex space, but we can't sit passively waiting for it. We've got to help shape it.
If I, as a marketer or as an individual within a large organization, I'm thinking, okay, my company's going to move at the speed it moves at, but I want to find out more information about this. I can play with the tools and I can build some skills in a particular tool, but I often feel like it's hard to even know where to turn. So what are you recommending for marketers and salespeople to get themselves up to speed and to upskill themselves?
It really depends on your country, on your own industry sector. So for example, I know you have in the US a marketing AI institute. You have marketing journals. You have the equivalents that we have of content marketing institutes, public relations communications associations, or PRSA, I think you have. They are starting to run webinars on it and have market research. We have a Chartered Institute of PR as well, Chartered Institute of Marketing. They're becoming pretty good, with the research they do, the training courses that they offer. But I think you've got to go outside of that and go to resources like the World Economic Forum. The management consultants, the Bains and McKinseys are putting out great content. Doing a Boolean search on LinkedIn for AI, capital AND marketing, and then searching under posts and people and following regular people, listening to really good podcasts. That's what I do. I check the news all the time under news, not just a Google search, but a news search for AI, capital AND marketing. I look at like I say, the WEF and AI journals. The AI journals are good. And places like the Alan Turing Institute. And, I go to quite a few university talks as well. So sometimes it's the AI, sometimes it's the marketing, and sometimes it's both. And I think sometimes you have to join them yourself.
So there's a lot of places we can get this information, but it's sort of beholden on us as individuals to educate. And obviously, listen, it'd be great if my agency or my startup, my organization could do the training, could build the oversight, as we say, and that's sort of top down. And, even right up at the government level, that's going to move slowly, although I think that they're trying to jump into this faster than they have done with social media for sure. That's still going through Congress over here. But then beholden on the individual to sort of lean forward and find it if they want to stay relevant. It can feel a bit overwhelming though. Like I'm like, okay, there's a lot of sources. People are already a year ahead of me or more. I mean, is it almost too late for people, or are we just at the very dawn of this, right? Even if you've done nothing.
No, you're not too late. In fact, I've been doing some work with SAS, and I saw a piece of research that they did, and very recent, and it talks about 25% of firms think their use of AI is transformational, but only 10% are, really leading with it. And then you've got only 14% really using AI. So 14% using it, many planning to. So, there's a bit of, like I say, AI washing, that this is not being deployed at scale in every marketing in-house team and every agency. I train a lot of people and they haven't got a clue. They really haven't. So we have to act quick, though. I wouldn't want for 1 minute any complacency to creep in. I don't think we can afford to slow down. We don't necessarily have to be the innovator, but we can't afford to be a laggard. We've got to keep up and stay a little bit ahead, and it doesn't actually take that much to do that. It can seem overwhelming. I've got a really nice scorecard for success that a lot of companies gamify, and you give yourself a score of 0 to 5 across these 10 areas. And actually, if you break it down and you really think a bit more strategically, what's our strategic plan? Let's have a watching brief on the competition. Let's monthly get somebody going and doing some due diligence or demos of these tools. And you as a team, and that could be HR as well as marketing as well as sales. And then you have those best practice champions across each department coming together as a team. Then it becomes more manageable.
Yeah, I like the idea of the scorecard there. I think that's great. So, okay, look, there's a step forward here. We can rate ourselves. It's not all just down to one person, but it's a cross-functional task force, if you like, to kind of learn what it means for you. And do you think then, just going back to the sort of content side, are organizations going to all have their own sort of LLM model and implementation that has their brand voice, that knows their particular vernacular and the vocabulary and the knowledge that they have? Is it going to go down to that level, or is it going to be still up at the ChatGPT, Anthropic kind of Claude type level?
It will become ubiquitous as it slots into many of the day-to-day tools that we use.
Right.
So Copilot is a great example of that. When you're starting to use AI in Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, etc., or when you're starting to use it every time you go on a Teams meeting, or you're bringing Firefly's tool into your Zoom sessions, what a lot of people have said to me is the glue is missing between all of this, and it's a bit of a Wild West. When it's knitted together better and it's a bit more coherent, then I think we won't need to all have our own LLMs and our own, examples. I think the organizations that are highly regulated, they need safe ChatGPT equivalents. They need these GPTs they can trust, where they're not putting their sensitive customer data into large open source, models. But we can't all afford to, necessarily develop our own bespoke. I know you can do ChatGPTs in a very kind of cheap, easy way, but I don't think we all need to go down that development path necessarily. I think all kinds of marketeers in different industry sectors can start to take advantage of marketing tools for AI, because they'll come into every tool they currently use. If you're Brandwatch, you've been developing AI for a number of years. Social media platforms like LinkedIn have got them, and so on. We won't really think so much about the AI. It will be hidden behind, like your smartphone. We don't care how the smartphone works. We know that there are all these different apps out there, and we're going to have to use the ones that are the latest ones, because they will give us initially the edge, and in time they will become ubiquitous.
So it's your sense that actually AI is going to be integrated into some of our common tools. We talked about Word and Google Docs, for example, or into the platforms that we use, like LinkedIn. And then there's going to be a few point solutions, the Midjourneys or what have you, that are sort of unique, that are new to our tool set, fulfill a particular function. But if I'm a marketer, I'm thinking, okay, AI is going to come to me, and what I need to know is how to take best advantage of that within the tools that I have. And those large organizations are going to integrate it. So it's...
Yeah. And that's the core, isn't it? That's, if you like, our core day to day. And then there are always going to be more soarers that come in and completely disrupt parts of industries and so on. So I think we've got to expect that constant change. And again, that comes down to, there will be for many years people that carry on doing it in the current digital and traditional way. And then there will be the people that will add value and really differentiate themselves by being the forerunners of the utilization of these tools in the way they do it. There's still communities that don't even have websites. There's still organizations that don't even use social media platforms. There will be many, many years to come where there will be marketeers that do things in a slightly more old-fashioned or just digital way. But for us that need to stay ahead and be cutting edge, these tools will revolutionize the way we do our marketing.
Right. I think that's a great point, actually. Don't worry if you're not adopting it, because there's plenty of time. But your other point here is, as marketers, there is a bit of a first mover advantage on adopting these new tools. So, hey, I am going to, when Sora is released, because I don't think it's widely available yet, I'm going to create videos to embed in all my blog posts, or maybe I'm going to put them in my email marketing, or I'm going to have a YouTube thing, a YouTube series that's all Sora generated, and I have a series for that. And the advantage will be to the people who innovate the most there before the rest of the wave adopted. So there is, for those people who are at the front edge and are willing to experiment, there's sort of disproportionate benefits to be gained by those people.
Good summary. Absolutely.
So the word there is sort of keep your eye on these new tools and see how you can use them to your best advantage. Let's talk about the risks, though. You mentioned there are some brand risks, and there are some risks to individuals. We've seen deep fakes, even up to President Biden on audio. We've seen some video deep fakes from celebrities recently. Is this something that the startups who we work with and listening here, is this something that they should be worried about? What risks should they be considering?
Yeah, so many risks. The deep fakes are very, very worrying. And again, that's where the technology is capable of, and the legislation and then the policing of that's got to change really, really quickly. Election year, in the US, in the UK, misinformation, deep fakes, taking advantage of it. That's really worrying. We've seen risks of the data not being eclectic, not being diverse, not being sufficient, bias creeping into that, wanting to push your marketing out to all different types of people, and yet your content is limited in the different ethnicities it touches, the different age groups and so on. So I think there is a risk that we have all these incredible tools, but we carry on doing the same thing because our data hasn't moved on. Being compliant and making sure that we are not violating trademarks and copyrights and so on, risking, I guess, our brand, risking our brand voice being taken over by ChatGPT and other tools that make it robotic, make us faceless as an organization if we're using it in our hiring, not differentiating what we do. We think we've got that first mover advantage, but we're relying on content pushed out by ChatGPT that actually becomes very generic. So I think it's that remembering the human in the loop, remembering the need for the policy, making sure that we fact check and making sure that we are fully up to speed with all of the different regulations and we shape it. Because I think, without sounding too cynical, you can do some great marketing thought leadership by getting around the table, debating these big issues with your ecosystem. And I think, that is a very proactive stance that I think marketers in every country and every industry sector around the world should be doing. Don't sit waiting for the technologists and the regulators to do it.
Yeah, I like the concept of, hey, look, there are the big risks, the confidentiality, the compliance risks that are all sort of present and probably avoidable. But there are also the small risks, the gradual erosion of our brand voice and the genericization of the content that we're putting out that happens sort of day to day, like you say, in the email that the HR team send back to a candidate, in the headlines that you put on that blog post, just in all of the content that the blog post header that's done by Midjourney, everyone can sort of see it and they can all hear it and they know there's a laziness about that, right? And because we can now recognize it, we as consumers or stakeholders can't help but react to, okay, you didn't take the time to customize this enough.
Yes, agree. You've written a brilliant blog or post for LinkedIn, and then it says, would you like to rewrite this with AI? No, actually, I'm very comfortable with the fact that I've written something original that is they're my words. So absolutely right.
If I'm leading a marketing department and I'm trying to take the best advantage of these AI tools, I also have to be very careful that, look, the human in the loop, it's shortcutting the process, but let's not just go down to the lowest common denominator, because that's where we'll end up and will sound like the same for everybody else.
A good dose of skepticism, a good dose of realism, using it for maybe 75% of the grunt work, the research, drawing in. But we haven't touched on it, but great prompting is really important, isn't it? I often get asked that, not just cheat sheets, but how do I prompt tools like, ChatGPT? Upload this material, get a sense of our house style. Now write me a 600-word piece, blog, targeting this target audience. Write it in a style like journalist X. Quote this industry journal. It's that level of deep prompting that we need to get clever at, rather than the lazy, write me 6 social media posts about AI and marketing. We've got to be clever. We've got to know what our start point is, what's going to differentiate us, who's going to be reading it, how it's different to what else is out there on the market.
My hope is that will gradually become easier, because I think these tools, I think ChatGPT's got some level of sort of permanence that it can now remember the content that the questions that you put in last time. So if you've told it your brand voice, it's only on one of the paid tiers, I think, it will remember it. The same with Gemini. So it will gradually learn who you are or your vernacular and sort of get better at that. And I know at the early stage of this, being a prompt engineer was sort of almost a job title for some, but it feels like that should be abstracted away as these tools get better, because, like learning how to get the best out of the tool by cleverly prompting it is the wrong way around. Like the tool should understand what I want, not me trying to sort of develop some kind of prompt. So I think, there is definitely a skill set in that, but hopefully it will get easier over time.
Yeah, I mean, you could ask the AI, you could ask ChatGPT to write a template marketing strategy for you. But again, nothing's going to replace your strategic knowledge of your business, your competitors, the way you are considering breaking into new geographic markets, what that means it can't do that. And I think that's again, we've got to take the best of what this can offer us and sit down as teams and come up with something really strategic, something really creative, something really human as well.
Yeah, I like that. Just before we wrap this section, do you have any other final sort of advice or thoughts for sort of startup marketers when it comes to the use of AI in sales and marketing?
You're going to have to be on a journey of continuous learning. So whether like me, you've written 2 books on it, or whether you're just getting involved, don't have imposter syndrome. Don't think everybody else knows everything. Be curious, try new things. Don't be frightened to fail. Iterate. The brands in my books have had failures, and then they've iterated with AI, and they've taken it from a chatbot into a customer onboarding. So yeah, they would be some of my core messages.
It's good advice. And overall, I've heard just like it's not too late. There's plenty of resources to learn about this. Dive in and experiment.
Absolutely. Have some fun with it,
A note of optimism, yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely optimistic. And think purpose. We haven't touched on purpose, but think about the time this frees up maybe makes us all better organizations that have a deeper corporate social responsibility, and think about purpose-driven marketing as well.
Wonderful. Our next section is called Fired Up 5, and this is our quickfire round. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and we'll take it from there. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. The first one is, what would you do if you weren't in marketing?
I would be a part-time singer in a band, and it wouldn't make me any money. I sing in a band, but it wouldn't make me enough money to live. So the rest of the time I would be writing novels that would then be made into amazing films.
Wow. I love that. Wait, you're in a band. What kind of music do you sing?
I sing in a covers band, and we sing all kinds of things from Dusty Springfield to Dolly Parton to The Jam. I love it.
Oh, that sounds super fun, and good luck with the novel.
Thank you.
What's the best career advice that you've ever been given?
2, actually. I mentioned one a moment ago. Don't always think people are better than you. So don't have this imposter syndrome. It's really, really important. But the other, my first ever boss said to me, if you're going to do an MBA, and I do firmly believe in lifelong learning, do it before you have kids. And I took him up on that, and I did. And it was the best thing I ever did in terms of, salary enhancements and, being able to differentiate. So they're important too.
I think that's important, particularly at the moment when a lot of higher education is under a lot of scrutiny. There's still a lot of, there's a lot to learn there, whether you get the MBA or not. I think
agree.
That's critical. Yeah. Which book do you most often recommend?
I don't recommend many, but I do regularly quote Simon Sinek's Why. Mm-hmm. I do strongly believe in this idea of it. It's not what we do, it's not how we do it, but it's why we do what we do. And I think that's because I'm of a certain age now, I'm 57, and I'm really starting to think and question what I do for a living. Mm-hmm. And I run a pro bono school program teaching young people how AI is reshaping their careers. So I think, thinking about legacy, thinking about what we're here for without sounding really existential or whatever, but I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, I like teaching school kids about AI because they certainly must be worried about it. And
definitely.
It's definitely impacting their lives hugely. What's the strangest job that you've ever done?
I haven't done many strange jobs, but in my first job, I was given a metal box of fiber optic cables. And I was told in 6 weeks' time, you're going to Iraq. And then a month later, you're going out to Nairobi. So I actually took my little box of telephone cables all around the world to these telecoms trade fairs. And I was a little bit of an odd one out. But it wasn't particularly strange. At the end of the day, I was a marketeer, but it was just the nature of the products I had and what have you. I've worked in a chemist, I've done telemarketing, but none of them are particularly strange.
That one sounds good. A good chance to kind of go and see something international at an early stage. I think that's exciting. Oh, what are you excited about for 2024?
From a personal perspective, my work is taking me all around the world, and I'm working with governments in America, in the Far East, in Europe. I'm genuinely excited to see the technology and the regulation starting to kind of like knit together a little bit more. But I'm a bit more of a free agent these days, and I'm able, when I go to these lovely places, to actually add a week on and go and see these, see some lovely sights. So yeah, again, it's balance, isn't it? I work really hard, but I am looking forward to getting a bit more perspective, maybe a bit of a chance to write that novel.
Writing that novel. But I always feel like when you go away and you see a different culture and you come back, it gives you a fresh perspective on things.
It does. And AI requires, for it to be safe in the future, it requires the scientific community around the world, the governments, the business people to collaborate internationally or else.
Right, or else. So Katie King is the author of AI Strategy for Sales and Marketing and is a well-known speaker on the topic of AI. Katie, thanks for joining us here on Fired Up. Really enjoyed talking to you. If people want to get in touch with you, where should they go?
Been a great conversation, first of all, Morgan. Thank you very, very much for that. AIinbusiness.co.uk. That's the best place. That's my website. And from that, you've got everything from the books to the keynotes with links to my social platforms. I'm really, really open to connecting with people, particularly on LinkedIn, but you'll find everything on AIinbusiness.co.uk.
Wonderful. Thanks for your time today. Really enjoyed our conversation and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you. Likewise.
Well, that about wraps it up for today. But before we close, we did want to offer all of our Fired Up friends a chance to grab a mega pack of all of our ebooks and guides. That's our guide to content marketing. That's our startup guide to paid media using Google Ads. It's our guide to attribution. You can get all of those, over 100 pages of goodness, at firebrand.marketing/fired up freebies. That's freebies with an S. And we hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, please give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts or drop us a note at firebrand.marketing. And as ever, the details of how to get in touch with our guest today can be found in the show notes. Thank you for listening. And until next week, get out there and crush your marketing goals.